I think that what Trump does really well is he actually listens to the concerns of the American people. Polling for years indicated that the majority of Americans were concerned about inflation, concerned about undocumented immigration. And while the Democrats tend to think that this strategy of denying and pretending it doesn't happen or isn't happening is somehow a successful strategy, it clearly is not. He pays attention to what people are concerned about, and he speaks to those issues. And I really hope that this is a teachable moment for the Democratic Party. So far, I've seen them refuse to take any personal responsibility for their failures and foibles.
I don't think they've learned honesty. Yeah.
I think that was beautiful. I think Anna Kasparian is 100%, 100% right about this one. She is telling the truth right there and exposing the Democrats and telling what Donald Trump has been thinking all along. Let's watch.
I think that this is a small but incredibly loud and influential faction of the Democratic Party. This is not indicative of all Democrats. This is not indicative of all Democratic lawmakers. This is a small group of activists who like to bully, who like to go to city council meetings, who like to go to various rallies and essentially be loud, be threatening, be aggressive until they get their way. And for far too long, the Democratic Party has been terrified of these little mobs of people, these little mobs of activists, and have basically just carried out what these activists want. And I just think that they need to be a little smarter than falling prey to the whims of various activist groups, because they are not representative of the majority of Americans. The majority of Americans, especially in a state like California, want homeless people to be housed, but they also understand that this issue is far more complicated than the housing first policy of throwing anyone who doesn't have a home into an apartment, right? Because the fact of the matter is we have severe mental health issues out on our streets right now, people who are struggling with severe drug addiction. Some of these people actually do have families to go to or homes to go to. They need a different type of service. They need rehabilitation, not harm reduction, where we're just passing out needles and crack pipes thinking that it's going to solve the problem. It has not solved the problem. It has made the lives of these individuals struggling on the streets far worse, and it has also made the lives of hardworking, tax-paying Americans in states like California a lot worse. When I look at my life right now and I ask myself, which political party has made my life worse? It's not the Republican Party. Locally speaking, the Democrats have complete control, and they have nearly destroyed my family's livelihood. Okay, we are living in trash and squalor everywhere. And unless the Democratic Party actually acknowledge these issues and solve these issues, rather than stealing our taxpayer money and funneling it to their nonprofit friends, they keep doing this, they're going to keep losing. And I'm going to keep speaking out against them. I don't care how much they hate Trump. I don't care how naughty the Republicans are being. Right now, the people having a negative impact on my life is the Democratic Party, and they need to change their ways. When we say we want to change the status quo, it doesn't mean we want to live in anarchy. It doesn't mean that we want to have $24 billion of our taxpayer money in California stolen by these nonprofits. It means that we want working people to be rewarded for their hard work. We want affordable housing. We want better working conditions, higher wages, better health care. These are things that Democrats used to purport to want to do. They don't do any of it anymore. And so I'm done with them until they change their ways.
Yeah, I completely understand.
I completely agree. I think she delivered a great speech right there, exposing what the Democratic Party has done. If the Democratic Party want to win again an election, they have to do better. They ran a terrible campaign,
sit around
and now is the time to do much, much better if they want to win again. We will see if they can do it.
If we're going to sit around and wait for our elected lawmakers to protect us from these religious zealots and these right-wing authoritarians, man, we have another thing coming. How many times do we need to be disappointed by them? I'm done with them. And personally, I don't speak for everyone in this network. I want to be clear. I'm speaking for myself. I'm done with them completely. The Democratic Party, every single one of them, that includes the squad, I don't care anymore. They have not delivered. They have not delivered. I'm done. Okay. It's time to organize, create organizations that get women and get people in this country what they need. People who are willing to pick up the slack for these disgusting, feckless, corrupt politicians. That's what we need to focus on.
Beautiful. That was beautiful. I think she's right about that. I think it is beautiful to see her realize how worse the Democratic Party is.
Look, the other thing I'll say is, I actually think that one of the things that Musk did with X, and I will admit I was very skeptical going into it, but community notes ended up being fantastic. And in fact, the era of, censorship on social media really did lead to platforms like Facebook, for instance, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So Facebook as a platform was great for independent news sources in order to get their message out, get their content out. And then because of the censorious era, Facebook deprioritized news entirely. And I thought that was a terrible way of responding to what was going on. I think the best way to fight misinformation is through more speech. And the way that it's been implemented on X is excellent. I think community notes is fantastic. So that's what Facebook wants to do. I think that's the right way to go about it.
I like community note myself. I think it's great that users have a voice and can tell if someone is spreading disinformation or not. I think she's 100% right about what X is doing right there.
And look, I'm sure there will be some people who will say, well, interrupting Blinken's speech was unacceptable. But think about the evasive nature of the Biden administration when it comes to answering questions from journalists on this very matter. And think about the hypocrisy of the Biden administration when it comes to pretty much everything. But as you can hear, Sam Husseini is specifically calling out the Biden administration for the lack of value toward the free press, especially when it comes to, valuing the free press when they want to ask questions about this very real issue and war, the carnage that American taxpayers are forced to fund. The American government continues to aid and abet. The cover that the Biden administration has provided for the far-right government of Israel as they continue to slaughter tens of thousands of innocent civilians who are trapped in a tiny territory of land called the Gaza Strip. The fact that Israel inched us closer and closer to a potential hot war with Iran. Luckily, that has not happened, but they invaded and went to war in Lebanon. I mean, the situation is already out of control, but it could have been much worse. And honestly, things have felt incredibly out of control with the leadership of the Biden administration. I mean, for the most part, it feels as though Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State, is the one making the policy decisions as it pertains to this war. And it's gone on for 15 months. You look at the high death toll among civilians, and it's absolutely, utterly unacceptable. And what you hear from the State Department, what you hear from Anthony Blinken time and time again after Israel has reneged on the ceasefire agreements is that it's Hamas's fault. In other words, he has only regurgitated what Israel says.
I think she makes a great point right there. She's telling us that the Biden administration did nothing to solve the war in Gaza, that they were supporting Israel all this time, and that only Trump was able to cut a peace deal between Israel and Hamas and finally end the war and bring the hostages back home. It is beautiful to see. I hope Trump does great things in the next 4 years. We will see.
You blew the whistle on the PG&E scandal that I'm not hearing anything about right now. And I can't articulate the way that you do. And I learned about it, as mentioned, from you. So I was hoping that you could talk a little bit about that. You have a brilliant 20-minute video that I posted on X the other day. But can you encapsulate what happened there and what role Newsom played in letting PG&E off the hook?
Well, essentially what he did was bail out PG&E, even though PG&E essentially started the fires in Paradise, California.
Right.
They couldn't be bothered to replace a $10 hook that was nearly 100 years old, and that hook was holding the power lines up.
Right.
So just think about that. These hooks are basically falling apart. Power lines are falling. We have dry conditions in California. And so it's a tinderbox. We live in a tinderbox right now. I mean, Newsom, of course, also can't be bothered to clear the dry brush, had cut funding for that. Anyway, but putting that aside, after the fires happened in Paradise, California, and so many people lost their homes, lost everything they had worked for, Newsom comes in because PG&E is one of his major donors and it essentially bails them out and structures a settlement with the individuals who lost their homes in such a way that it's essentially tied to the value of the shares for the stock of PG&E. And so it created the situation in which the very people who lost everything because of the greed of this utility company now have to root for this utility company to maximize their profits if they are to get any money.
This is obviously exposing how Gavin Newsom is completely crooked and how he is responsible for all the poor mismanagement decision that has happened in California and causing millions of people to lose all they had. It is sad to see. Gavin needs to go. It's what he's good at. He is completely crooked, incompetent, and making the worst out of California. This was such a great episode. I agree. Gillian Michaels is a great interviewer. She has been a great and powerful voice of reason on the right. And there, Anna Kasparian is finally realizing that she needs to depart from the Democratic Party. And people are here for it. People are waking up. Finally, I agree. I agree that Anna delivered beautiful argument for why the Democratic Party is completely useless right now. And that's exactly why people voted for Trump. They wanted change. They wanted a party that defends their right and their interest. And that's why Trump is in the White House right now. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, click right there to watch the next video. And I will see you there. Bye-bye.